know what you're thinking. Jason, aren't you just a little overdressed? Well, today is a special day. Not only is it the 1-year anniversary of this channel, but I finally got my DC Multiverse Year 2 Batman. I'm sure that all of the canceled pre-orders and aggravation will be absolutely worth it once I peek inside this box. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. January 24th, 2022 is the 1-year anniversary of this channel. To celebrate, we're taking a look at the long-awaited DC Multiverse Designer Series Batman Year 2. Starting off the packaging and avoiding glare was no small feat. This whole thing is just a big giant reflective surface, so literally anything I do is going to be a problem. That said, even by DC Multiverse standards, this is a very impressive box. I dare say, even prestigious. More of that window at the top, name on the side, legal on the bottom, UPC for those who want it, and a nice big product shot on the back. If I had any complaint about the packaging, it would actually be the insert tray. To take the alternate parts out, you literally have to destroy it. Even so, for packaging, I'm giving the Year 2 Batman 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, and I think we're going to have to take off the cape. That said, if you're curious, it's 14 inches across. To accommodate that giant cape, he doesn't have any arms, but since they are vital parts of his body, we should probably have them for presentation and posability. And I'm not going to lie, this is the part that I am the most worried about. And this is why. Honestly, not only am I not upset about this, I'm actually kind of grateful. I've seen online that this has happened to a lot of collectors, so this is a great opportunity for me as a reviewer to better inform you. After all, you're the reason I do this. Looking at the seam line, and the joint itself is still intact. As you can see, it still turns just fine. The secret is going to be gluing it in there in such a way that it doesn't get on the sides of the arms so that it won't be frozen in place. A single drop right in the middle should do just fine. And like so. I'm going to keep turning it back and forth just to make sure that if anything did seep, it doesn't have a chance to stick. Anyway, getting back on track, to the top of his head, Batman stands at 7¼ inches, but to the top of his ears, he stands at just under 8. From the top, and the first thing you might notice is the giant slit in his throat. When the capes are there, however, it is completely covered. Mostly covered. You'll also notice that the edge of his cowl is just sort of painted on his torso, which for McFarlane is kind of different. He actually does the same thing down here with the gloves. The emblem, however, is sculpted on and does look pretty crisp. And speaking of paint, you'll notice that the yellow on the belt and the emblem are 2 different hues. It's a nice old-fashioned capsule belt with his underoos on the outside. Just like the ears are larger than life, the scallops are pretty big as well, but on the subject of scallops, they forgot to include them on his boots. I had to literally re-glue my figure back together, but somehow this is my bigger complaint. Otherwise, it's really refreshing to see a Batman figure from McFarlane that is just a human body with cloth over it. No extra padding, or panels, or shoulders, or piping, or anything else. Just Batman. So naturally, they covered it with a giant cape. Granted, the cape is magnificent and is the main selling point of the item, but hidden underneath that cape are some inaccuracies, as well as some quality control issues, so for presentation, I'm giving the Year 2 Batman ½ point. Moving on to posability, and again, Batman's head's on a ball joint at the base of his neck. He can look up this much and down this much, crazy amount of tilt, and all the way around. While this is functional, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like it. Tilting the head, for example, just cuts a really unnatural shadow. Just a simple running pose, and he ends up looking like nearly headless Nick. Swivel hinge shoulders raise over 90 degrees, forward and back with the McFarlane rotator cuff. You've already seen the bicep swivel. And moving down, he's got double jointed elbows and McFarlane wrist balls. They swivel and hinge. He's got a diaphragm joint and a waist swivel. Using both together, he can arch back that far and hunch over that far, which is to say, not at all. He does, however, get pretty good tilt and side to side. Below the waist, he has the typical McFarlane hips. They kick out this far, swivel, and split. He's also got double jointed knees, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankle balls that swivel, hinge, and pivot. I might not like the neck joint, but it's functional. And for a figure that that acts as little more than a coat rack for a giant cape, it's every bit as articulated as any other DC Multiverse. For posability, I'm giving this Batman 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and you've seen Batman's arms, he also comes with an alternate cloth cape, and let's just get this out of the way, mine was defective also. I don't know if this is supposed to be glued in place or just clicks in place, but mine will absolutely not hold together. I ditched the gray piece and just put it on like this, and honestly, I think it actually sits a lot more flush. And I will say that even though it isn't perfect, the blues match really well. As always, Batman comes with a trading card. If you want to read what it says, pause here. He also comes with this gigantic blunt batarang, as well as these alternate hands. I'm assuming that they're reused based on how overly detailed they are. That said, I'm always grateful when a Batman figure has a fist, and of course this one can hold a batarang. It can also hold a gun for a really accurate Batman Year 2 look. This one came from Flashpoint Batman. The other major accessory is the graveyard base. Zooming in, we can see shattered tombstones for characters like Barbara Gordon and Tim Drake. Over here, we can see the names of his parents and Jason Todd. And then over here, we have Selina Kyle. Pretty much a bunch of characters that Batman has either lost or is afraid of losing. There are multiple peg options for his feet, but they're nicely hidden amongst the bricks. There's also an extra gravestone piece that clicks into place. It goes in like so. The box also includes these pieces for propping the cape up, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure how it works, but honestly, this thing stands up just fine without them. But playability is more than just fancy capes and cemeteries, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. For a blue and gray Batman comparison, here he is with the superpowers by Kenner. For many of us, this was our very first Batman, and this feels like a very loving tribute. I've seen a lot of people complain online about how brightly colored the new one is, but if you look, the blues completely match. That gives me an idea. Looks pretty epic to me. Here we have the Total Justice Batman by Kenner, and Legends of the Dark Knight also by Kenner. Not gonna lie, I've been waiting to put these two in particular side by side, but I think we can do one better. There it is. Here we have the Silver Age Batman and Robin 2-pack by DC Direct. Here we have the DC Superheroes S3 sculpt by Mattel, and then DC Universe Classics, also by Mattel. Here we have Batman based on the Killing Joke, also by DC Direct, and Nightfall Batman by DC Essentials. There is, however, one other very special blue and gray Batman that I want to compare him to, Pocket Hero Batman by Mego. If you saw my video on the Spin Master electronic Batmobile, you'd know that this was the very first all-plastic Batman figure ever made. I would also wager that it was probably a very big influence on the Superpowers collection. Stepping back, and it's amazing to see just how far both action figures and Batman have come. For one more Batman-specific comparison, here he is with the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Battle Damage Batman. Here's a head swap if you're interested. For a Joker comparison, here he is with the clown version of the Joker from the Three Jokers. For a Superman comparison, here he is with the Action Comics 1000 from DC Multiverse. For a Robin comparison, here he is with DC Universe Classics. He won't work on the shelf, but for figure photography purposes, Force Perspective will be your ally. For a relative scale comparison, here he is with Pete the Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And of course, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. It would have been so easy for McFarlane Toys to just give us the giant cape and pretty much make this a statue, so I really appreciate all the extra parts that make this a functional action figure. I have mixed feelings about the cloth cape, mainly because it doesn't really fit the rest of the line, but as a tribute to the superpowers, it is a welcomed experiment. For playability, I'm giving this Batman 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Between all the original pre-orders being cancelled, limited stock selling out instantly, and now having them all end up being defective, getting this figure was a nightmare. At $49.99 or $80 if you wanted one signed by Todd McFarlane, was this worth it? In terms of value in box, yes. This piece is more than a toy. This is a work of art. But toys are supposed to be fun, and this ordeal has been anything but. For price, I'm giving the Year 2 Batman half a point for a grand total of 4 out of 5. For more Batman content, check out my look at the new Robert Pattinson Batman, or check out this video on the Target exclusive Battle Damage one. This has been an incredible first year. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And here's to many, many more. Until then, play nice and have fun.